Welcome to Immigrate. Welcome to a space where you can be vulnerable, a space where you're not going to be judged, a space where you can be authentic. And my hope and desire is to inspire and motivate everyone that click onto this podcast. So, welcome to another episode of Immigrate. Hello, everyone. It's a little TED Talk. I call it Tasha TED Talks now. Today I was having a conversation with someone I look up to in a sense, or like to have conversation, and it provoked a thought that comes to mind, and the Holy Spirit said I should share it on my podcast. And what came to mind was the Bible text that says, "Wait patiently for the Lord, be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord." And it makes me think about a lot of things that sometimes immigrants or Christians, we tend to compare ourselves with people, not because we intentionally want to do it. It's because in our minds, when we set out to go anywhere and walk with me, you know, and let's go on this journey. Imagine packing your bags and you have everything planned, like you've been planning it for a year. I remember when I first started this journey of wanting to come to Canada, this was a year in advance. And having like minded people around me at the time who had the same mindset of wanting to do the same journey. I remember saying to them every time that I want to be in Canada. I just didn't know why, but I was like, I wanted to be in Canada. And I remember that summer in university, the Holy Spirit pricked on my heart at the time. I was just praying, and then the Holy Spirit told me that I should fast and pray. And I was just fasting and praying about the opportunity that I could have to come to Canada. I did not know if it was possible, but all I knew is that I wanted to come to Canada. And that's all I knew. I fast and pray at the same time every single day. I used to fast from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every single day. And I remember at one point, stuff just started happening out of the way. And I just kept praying. And every time something happened that will remind me that I won't go, I kept praying. I didn't have the money. The Lord just worked things out. And having that preparation for 1 year helped me to prepare to come to Canada was really so important with my journey. And fast forward, I remember telling my mom that I'm not coming back. And she looked at me and just like, "What do you mean?" God bless my grandmother. And then my grandmother said, "Well, if you see a way out and you can stay." But I remember saying to my mom, "I'm going back to school. I'm going to go to school. I'm not going to come back." She didn't believe me because she know deep down I didn't have the money. So where are you going to stay? You don't know what you're doing anyway. But I packed my bags. I remember the last person I saw on trip coming here was my aunt. And I told my aunt the same thing, and my aunt laughed and she said, "Well, how are you going to manage? How are you going to manage?" I said, "I don't know." But, I had a plan in my mind that by a certain amount of time that I'm going to make it. I'm going to accomplish all these things. I'm going to accomplish everything that I want to because I had a timeline in my mind. And I want to talk to us about timeline. That sometimes with timeline, what it does, it gives us the false narrative of what exactly will happen. And what I mean by false narrative, sometimes in our mind we tell ourselves that by X time or by Friday, I need to do this. I'm not talking about where you have the faith and you have been impressed by God to think about it and do it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying not to have faith. What I'm saying is timeline in your mind without even consulting God and saying, by the time. Because when I left Jamaica, I had a timeline in my mind that by a certain time, I should accomplish this, and this. Remember, I have never been to the place before. I don't know what outcome I will. I'm going by faith, right? And fast forward to being here this long, I've gone through so much obstacles that the timeline that I had in my mind kind of put me in a state of depression. And I remember having this conversation with the person today. And I said to them, because they're new in a country too, and I said to them, do not put a timeline on yourself. Do not put a timeline on yourself, because putting a timeline on yourself, you're putting stress, you're causing your body to go through stress. Because one, we don't know what God wants us to learn while we're in that space. We don't know the plans that God have for us. We only know the plans that we have for ourselves. And when we do that, we eliminate God out of the picture. We're not saying, okay, God, let your will be done. That's a different statement than to say, I need to do this. It's good. And I've came on this podcast so many times talking about it's one of the best thing is to do is to plan. I'm not saying don't plan. But what I'm saying is when you're planning, ask God, is this the right thing for me to do? Let your will be done. Having a timeline, saying to herself, I need to accomplish this by a certain age. I need to accomplish this by a certain time. I need to drive this type of car by a certain time. And it's putting herself through so much pressure. What I find with, I could be wrong, but what I find over the years with why we do the things we do because of expectation of others. We look on social media. That's one of the biggest narrative that a lot of people, including myself, compare ourselves to and put an expectation. Because one of the things that we have to understand with social media only give you like 10 seconds or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. A lot of these bloggers only give you like 10 minutes or 20 minutes of their narrative that they want you to see. And a lot of times we use those narratives to dictate what goes on in your life. So a lot of times when people move to a new country, they get, for the first year, they're really depressed because guess what? You had a timeline in your mind and saying, I need to do this. I haven't accomplished it. And I'm like, you start questioning yourself. Was I supposed to be here? Friends, I'm not coming here because I hope you never ever think that I'm judging you. But what I'm saying is, I'm talking from experience. I'm talking from the fact that sometimes we gotta be careful with the timeline we put ourselves through. We can go through the Bible by leaf, chapters, and realize that a lot of these Bible characters that became successful or God used them powerful, they never had a timeline because their timeline was not them. Their timeline was God. And the reason I started with Psalms 27, verse 14, because I was like, Lord, you want me to share this, but what text should I use to emphasize and to share with your listeners? And wait patiently for the Lord. Be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord. You're still going to have your plans, as I said, because I'm big on talk about make your plans. And you still have to be brave. You still have to be courageous, bold, because you're walking into something that you have no clue what will happen. But don't put a timeline. I know I've gone into that, but then I said social media. Let's go back to that. We talk about social media. You know, another thing that I realized that gives us a false narrative? Our mind, culture shock, our minds. Let me break it down because culture shock in our minds, you're like, what are you talking about? What I'm saying is, with our minds, we have an image of what the place is gonna be. We have an image of what it should look like. That narrative, oh my God. You know, I've watched TV and I've seen the high-rising buildings. I've seen people just moving busy, and you Google and you do all the research, seeing that jobs are better, people are living better. But there's a saying in Jamaica, come and live with me, and then you will know the real truth. It says, see me and come live with you is a two different thing. It means when you're in the place, it's a completely different narrative than when if you're not in that place. So with our minds, what it does is we build up that narrative and that understanding of saying, I can, and this is what life is. Funny story. I remember the first time I came to Canada, and I used to see these funny things on TV, as a kid, and it's like, oh, I want to experience. And I went to in the store, like I don't remember what store we were in. Probably was Superstore. I don't remember, but the store was massive. These you're in Canada or wherever you are. Stores are huge comparing to a smaller country, and I was flabbergasted. I was like in awe. And I remember I only had 40 Canadian dollars in my pocket. I went around picking up things like crazy lays, like all the things that I couldn't afford in Jamaica. I was picking them up. And stay with me, I'm not losing track. And when I went to the cashier, I couldn't even pay for my stuff. I was so embarrassed. But I wasn't embarrassed that because I was embarrassed, but I was like, oh, sorry. Then a guy behind, he wanted to get home so badly and surprise his wife. He ended up paying for everything. Everybody that was in front of him, he paid for them so he can pay himself because I was trying to scramble for money. What I'm saying is the mindset. So in my mind, I've already set myself up to like, wow, we're going to do this, this, and this. But the reality is you can't afford everything. $40, I thought it could have taken care of me. But that's why I said culture shock. I was shocked that I could not afford with my 40 Canadian dollars. But leaving Jamaica, you couldn't tell me that that one not able to take care of all that I thought in my mind I wanted. So those are the things that sometimes, and there's lots other too. Family member giving us that false narrative of what you thought they were when they left your country, and then when you actually live with them, when you actually in the country, they're completely different. They're completely different. Their attitudes are different. They don't treat you the same. And then what happened? We get shocked. I'm gonna share every time I share a story. I heard this story on a lady share, which I think it's very, very important. I've never heard anyone explain it like this. If you have ever listened to my podcast and this is the person, thank you for sharing that story. But I don't know her name, but she shared a story that I think I'm gonna end this little TED talk with. Or I don't know if I might end it, but let's see. But she said when she moved to the US, I was watching a video, and she said she was living in a family house. And she said she went there for 6 months. This was a lady who was just on visiting visa. She wasn't even staying, right? She said when she moved to Canada, no, sorry, to the US, when she went to the US, she stayed with her niece. And every day she said she will get up when her niece is up and she will help her niece, right? What she said in the story makes me want to share it is this. She said before her niece gets home, she will leave the house and go to the park just to get some fresh air. And I said before she would get up, right, when her niece is leaving. She said she will help around the house and just do things around the house so that her niece doesn't feel like she's a burden. She said the reason she left and go to the park when she knew her niece is gonna get home is because this is where consideration comes in. She's considering her feelings, like, she's leaving work. She probably really don't want to. She probably want to be in the house just to take off your bra and be like, and just be yourself. She said sometimes she will go to the park and she'll walk around for an hour And she's not just doing that, but she's also doing it where she can also get some fresh air and exercise. And I said, wow, if a lot of us will consider techniques like this, it would have been successful. Long story short, she ended up leaving the niece's house and went somewhere else. She also said she did not stay there for too long. She stayed, I think, around a month, and then she moved on to another family's house. But while she was there, she will help the niece and she will do little things around the house. She never give the niece any attitude. Even if the niece might, she never take it as anything because she understands that the niece is a human. And then sometimes, so what I'm saying is, a lot of times with these false narrative or family member, we interpret them the wrong way because we are also coming from a place where, why do I treat me that way? But sometimes they can be going through their own things. I'm not saying to take what the lady did, but I think that was so important. What she did was consideration, thinking about her nieces um way that she might felt, and she was like, let me go for a walk. And that helps and that helps to shift that relationship that she said, even she could always go there, she never quarreled. But we hear a lot of stories where, oh, my family member kicked me out when I went there for a month. They throw me out, all these things. I think I've shared that story. But but I'm not saying people are not or not nice. Of course, 100%. Even if you treat them with respect, some people just are very bad. But the point I want to make is sometimes it's very important for us to not put a timeline. Don't let someone put a timeline on us. Don't let someone give you, when we have our things and God tell us to do something, just go in faith. And faith doesn't mean that we're not supposed to plan. But faith, what it means is we're gonna trust God even if we don't know what is going to happen. We're not gonna have anything in our minds because guess what? We don't want to have worry. God don't want us to worry. Worry causes depression, and then depression causes mental health. And that's when all of these things come about, and we sit and we watch and we compare ourselves with people and we compare ourselves with other cultures. Do not do that to yourself. Do not let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. If you're in a situation where you feel like someone is making you feel insecure or feel like you're extremely uncomfortable, all you gotta do, politely tell them, excuse, I don't want to be here, or just don't go back there. If you can't, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're in the best health as possible. With that, it comes with a lot of work, self awareness. Because that lady, that story I said, I'm sure it comes from a place of self aware, and not feeling like, oh, I'm at her house, she should. She did the same consideration for her niece because she understood. But anyway, I just wanted to just talk about that and let you guys understand that it's so important not to put timeline. Timeline is not our timeline. We'd never know. So thank you for listening to another TED Talk by Tasha. And I hope you guys share this content. Share it with someone that you think might be beneficial. Someone who needs to hear this. Someone who you don't know how to tell them, but you think they might want to. Sometimes we don't want to tell someone something, but you're like, let her listen to this. But until another episode, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening to that wonderful interview. It was such a delight. If you want to hear more inspiring episodes like these, please to follow us on our Instagram at Immigrate. We'll be uploading all the videos, all the short clips of it, and you can find me in my email at heslop.tashagay13@gmail.com. That is heslop dot tashagate at 13 at gmail.com. Thank you for listening to another great episode of Immigrate.